Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across the planet, around the world. I'm Greg Prescott from in5d.com. And tonight we're going to break open all the secrets about the real NESARA versus the lowercase pseudo-fictitious NESARA. But first, I just want to mention real quick, on In5D today, I just released a free personalized astrology and numerology reading called the In5D Astrology Blueprint. You can get it free. It comes out as like an 8-page printout or whatever, completely free on in5d.com. Just go to the homepage. You'll find it there or on the sidebar. So let me, I got one last thing. Oh yeah. There's also a free 3-card spread that I have on there where you can do a free tarot 3-card spread anytime you want. It gives the definitions and you can check that out as well. Right now it's on the homepage, but I'll put a link on the sidebar as well. But if you're on a cell phone, you'll find it below all the links on the homepage. So tonight, today, or this morning, wherever you may be, I'm joined with Dionese. I'm sorry, I'm fucking it up. I'm so nervous. I have a celebrity on like this. I'm joined with Dionese Barnard Gerbrecht, who's the daughter of Harvey F. Barnard, the author of the original National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act, known as NESARA. A lifelong Louisianian, she spent her career working in banking, bookkeeping, and business administration before retiring after 13 years as administrator of a Louisiana substance abuse treatment facility. Today, Dee is dedicated to preserving her father's legacy, so am I, and educating the public about the history and intent of the original NESARA proposal. Through the NESARA Institute and her educational outreach efforts, she works to distinguish fact from fiction while encouraging thoughtful discussion about economic and monetary reform. And you can find all of her info links in the more info section of this video. So Dee.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Great. What an intro there. A celebrity. Oh, wow.
It choked me up. I
don't think anybody's ever called me a celebrity before, but thanks.
I hold your father in such high esteem. I do. I've supported his work, the real NESARA, and like I kind of mentioned earlier, in the book, it's funny how it mentions the fake NESARA all in lowercase. I love that. Yes. I love that.
John Tiffany wrote that chapter for the book. So, and we'll get into that in our journey here this evening. So, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it, and I'm just so excited to get to reach out to your viewership and listenership, and hope that we can spread some truth and let people know, what's really going on, what really happened then, and why I'm back now after all these years.
Yeah.
So,
I started getting into all this stuff. I started hearing about this stuff years and years and years ago. There was something else that was floating around by some tard named Poof about these packets that were supposed to be delivered, almost similar, very reminiscent of the same NESARA story that we hear, the lowercase NESARA story, the pseudo NESARA that we hear nowadays, that promises, like in James Rank's video, promises, it was supposed to be delivered on September 11th. And then something magically always seems to occur. And the same shit happened with this Poof guy. And something came up. There was always some excuse pushing it down the line. Now, according to Charlie Ward, it's been the NESARA. According to Charlie Ward, NESARA has been out since the late 1950s, which means people have been waiting over 70 years for this. So yeah, I'm heavily vested in my interest in
Right,
the
right.
story
That
that you're
fish
about
story
to
just
tell.
keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we'll dissect some of that this evening for sure, because it's important to understand why it's here and why it's been allowed to go. I think that once people get to that understanding of what Harvey intended and what these other people are doing, it'll be obvious. So,
Mhm.
yeah, but I'm so glad to be here.
My pleasure. So where would you like to begin?
Well, we'll
I'm
just begin at the beginning. We'll talk about my dad. I sent a couple of slides here. Go back to the slide
Yep.
A.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we are.
Okay. Yeah. So, Harvey was born in North Louisiana, as my mom was, and he went to school up there. And I don't know if you're still there, if you can hear me, but he went to school up there, and
Yeah.
there you are. I
I didn't
lost you
want to
for a minute.
distract
Okay.
anyone. No. I pulled myself off screen.
Okay. Okay.
Please continue.
Okay, there you go. Well, that was I was wasn't prepared for that. Um, anyway, so uh, he married my mom, and then they came down to Baton Rouge when I was a little girl, and we were an average family, nothing special. I was an only child. They made sure I got a good education, and we went on vacations, and wasn't anything too different. My parents were a little bit unusual from the others in the neighborhood in that they were more scientifically oriented. Their favorite things were things like chemistry and physics and gosh, what else? Astronomy, anthropology, archaeology, geology is one of my mom's favorite things. So I kind of grew up in a family of the sciences, and as time passed, my father he became a systems troubleshooter. Now, you can go to probably one of the next slides. That's another early picture of him. He a systems troubleshooter, and what that is someone who goes in and analyzes systems, usually closed-in systems that are, um, comprised of different components. In his case, different instruments. He worked in a lot of plants. He would look at these systems, decide where the problems were, make recommendations to fix those problems, and or in many cases, design instruments to solve the problem. Everything from sugarcane plants to nuclear plants. Okay, so he had a well versed background in mechanical and instrumentation and just plain logic and physics. We're not to that one yet, so that'll come later. Anyway, he um, began to think. It actually was a quote from one of his professors that said that any um, problem, you could use the same methods and the same, critical thinking that we use to apply to any problem. Uh, and that got him to thinking about our economic system. He could see way back even then that this system was not sustainable. He could see how the people were, you know, the system was set against them uh, economically, and he began to study that. And I think as time went on, the writing of the bill, which is the National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act, was actually just a result of his work. And being a systems troubleshooter, you don't just go in and say, yeah, this is your problem, here it is, this is what's broke. You fix it. And so that's what his life's work was really all about. And he wrote the bill. And let's see, I think we had a slide. Let me go look over here. Which slide was that? Okay, slide E, if you've got that one. There it is. Okay, so he wrote the National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act. Here is that actual, I don't know if you can see that, the actual one that he brought up to Washington. And he visited the senators or whatever. He said it's very hard to get to see anybody. You can see an aide, you can see somebody's secretary, but to actually get to see one of them is difficult. But he kept at it. And he talked to them about this bill. And they said, well, yeah, thank you very much, sir. We'll take it under advisement. When you read the bill and you understand that it is a people's bill, that it completely overhauls our monetary and fiscal system here in the United States, not only in taxation, but in actual currency and the value of said, but it actually restructures the banking system. It's that's where the problem comes in, right? The political elite, your high-powered bankers, all of that, they don't want you messing with their banking system or their compound interest. That's really what like I said, I call the heart of the beast. There was a picture there with him, his friend. I think that one was D. Did we show that one yet? Yeah. So there's Harvey and his friend that went to Washington with him in the early 90s. And he talked to a lot of people and could get a little bit of grassroots support, but people really didn't understand economics and really didn't want to get involved in that kind of stuff. But in 1996, he released the bill into the public domain. He had a little website back then, and trying to get information out and get people interested. And it was shortly after that, I guess a couple of years, that all of a sudden on the scene appeared Shanae Goodwin. And we'll get into that whole can of worms in just a minute. But he kept up and like I said, just holding. I remember I would go to speeches with him and help him set up the speakers and be there with him while he gave lectures. My father had a way of teaching. It was incredible. He could just meet you where you were. But my father had a heart defect and had been with him since childhood. He had had a valve put in his heart several years before. Now in 2003, his health got really bad. He and my mom moved down here back to Baton Rouge where I am. And the plan was for him to retire here, for both of them to retire here. And unfortunately, he passed away in May of 2005. Now, the year and a half leading up to that, he was intent with the book. Okay, which was released in, I can get my camera straight here, in 2005. Okay, Draining the Swamp, the NESARA story. His reasoning was, and I didn't learn this till later, was for posterity. I believe that my father was under a great deal of stress. I heard them talk about this Shanae Goodwin person and these other people who had grifted his bill, the acronym and other parts of it. And I think it had put him under a little undue stress. But anyway, he wanted to make sure that this got out and that it was put down, registered, licensed, the whole 9 yards before he passed away. And my father died in a charity hospital right here in Louisiana. I was by his side. I know there's been all kind of rumors and all kinds of stories, all this kind of stuff. None of that is true. None of that ever happened. He was a very kind man. A lot of people might call him an introvert because he studied and read all the time, but he really genuinely liked people, and he liked helping people, and he liked teaching because he could see when that spark would come on, and that would get him fired up. But he passed away, shortly after that. My mom, I did build a house for her, and she did her best to keep the website up. Of course, she's a widow now. She had to go to work. I had to go to work. We, had to move on with our lives. So we packed away his belongings, and there they stood in the attic for quite some time. She sold a few books on the website. And after that, it just got too expensive for her to keep that website going. And I remember she came to me, she said, "Can I just turn it off?" And I said, "Sure, that's fine." And that was it. We went on with our lives. Never thought about it really again. I mean, we knew people, sir.
At what point did your family realize that your dad's work had been transformed into something completely different?
That came
What
later.
year was
Well, I guess you would have to, but we always knew that there were people out there. Now, I didn't know. I'd have to ask my mom exactly when and if she knew how big it had gotten. I didn't know until probably 23, 24, when I got pulled back into this thing. Um, I knew he wrote the bill. I knew people really weren't interested in economics, and that maybe one day, the book was there. Anybody who was interested, could go and find it. So, and about 23, my husband. I'm going to jump into my story a little bit here, and how I got back into this deal. He came to me with his phone. And he's holding up the phone. It has a picture of this is a hardback. This is one of the hardbacks that Harvey had printed in 2005. And he said, "Is this your dad's book?" And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, that's Daddy's book." He said, "They're selling it on eBay for $800. And I went, I said, "You're kidding. That's crazy. Nobody." I said, "That's not what he wanted." But people had bought some of them and they knew who he was. So of course he said, "You got any more of those books?" And I said, "Well, wait a minute, slow down. Let's just take this one step at a time." And I asked my mom and she said, "Yeah, I got a few cases." And I said, "Okay." They had to push me, but I said, "Okay, I'll sell them, but I'll only sell them for $300 because they're the last of their kind." Okay. I have promised the people who have bought this hardback, I will never print another hardback, and I'm a person of my word. Okay. So there are a few of these still left on eBay, but they're very few. Anyway, I was shocked. Greg, we sold them around the world. People in Mexico, Canada, Japan, UK, Australia bought, and of course in the United States, bought them. People knew who he was. They remembered him and they remembered the truth. And so I was like just excited as I could be, flattered really. All through that process, I kept getting emails. "Look, you got to do this. You got to put this on Kindle, get it in a format because the world needs this. The world has to have this information." I was thinking, okay, great. How do I do that? I'm a lowly bookkeeper at best. I am the administrator for substance abuse treatment facility. I've got three campuses going. I don't have time for this. And besides that, what do you want me to do? Retype this? I can't do that. I knew my father was meticulous and I knew he probably had a copy of it somewhere, but at this point I didn't know where. But it kept on and kept on. And finally I said, okay, I'll think about it. I'll think hard about it. As it would happen, you can call this divine timing, fate, whatever, however you want to look at it. Hurricane Ida hit Louisiana, and my mother, who lives next door to me, had 2 trees go through her house, cut it like butter. During this restoration process, there were several trunks in the attic that were Daddy's. And she said, "This stuff is your dad's. You want it?" He said, "You wanted it." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I want it." So I brought it home and I put it in the corner in my office, and there it sat, right? And some time passed, and it got to be Halloween, and I was decorating for something. I said, "Okay, I got to move this stuff." And so anyway, long story short, I opened the trunks, and in there were, hang on, these
floppy disks.
Okay, you have to be of a certain age to know what this is. And there it was, backup for the book. And I said, "Well, there you go." And I knew he had a copy. And so, I mean, he had some manuscripts that I've got his original manuscripts and all that kind of stuff, the original type version. But I said, "Great, this is what we'll do." Not so fast. There are illustrations in the book that are not on these discs. So my husband found those discs, and my husband and I are sitting here trying to marriage this together. And I said, "This is not working. Okay, it's not working. I'll put it back on the shelf." got a call from a girlfriend a few weeks later, and I know this girl. She's a friend of mine. She lives in the same small community I do, and she said, "Hey, Dee." I said, "Hey, what's happening?" And she said, "Your dad was Harvey F. Barnard." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, he was." And she said, "He wrote NESARA." And I said, "Yeah, he did. How do you know that?" She said, "You have no idea what's going on out here, do you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've been happily
What year?
buried on 12. I've been happily buried on 12 Oaks. I don't know. What are you talking about?" She said, "You have to do this. I will help you."
What year was this about?
That was in 24, yeah, late 24, I think, late 24. Yeah, sometime.
Wow. And all these years had passed.
Late 23. No, that was in 23 because I remember I worked on it, and I think 24 is when we actually put it out.
I've been working on it for 12 years.
Well, okay, so look, the story, this is just the craziest story. So I couldn't, what am I going to do? And I sat down, I said, "I'm not the only person with this problem. What do? You hire someone." So I hired someone to help me typeset it. Now, here comes another funny part. During this process, I sent them my information. We're doing the Google Drive thing, we're trying to, I'm proofreading everything. I had never read my father's book. And that shocks a lot of people when I get to that part of my story. They say, "Why? This is your dad's work. My gosh, it was life's work. You never read it." I said, "It's the same reason that I think a lot of people don't. It's economics." Okay. That stuff's going to go over my head. And I knew my father. I knew he was a genius. So I thought, no, I'm not going to understand this. And I was so wrong, Greg. I was so wrong. And I know that you've had an opportunity to look at his work. He writes it so simply, and he writes it where anybody, like I said, he meets you where you are. And he explains to us how our country got in this place, how the road to utopia ended in a swamp, which is where the title "Draining the Swamp" comes from. Okay. And so at that time, my main goal was to get it out there. Okay, get it out there in this Kindle version. I hadn't even thought about the paperback yet. And okay, here it is, world. Knock yourself out. Have a good time. Until I proofreading the book. I know we talked about this in pre-show. I got to the chapter in the book. It's called "Afterward: The NESARA Story." And as I said, excuse me. As I said, I knew about these grifters. I remembered them talking about them. I didn't pay much attention. This is my father's business. I'm not, he doesn't need my help. So I didn't give it a whole lot of mind. But if you don't mind, I'll read the excerpt from the book if you think your viewers would.
I would love that.
You would like that? Okay.
I would love it. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going off screen. I'll let you read.
Okay. Let me get to that part here. Okay. So this is from the chapter called "Afterward: The NESARA Story." It is in the book. This is "Draining the Swamp: The NESARA Story" by Harvey F. Barnard. It is available on Amazon in paperback, also Kindle on Amazon, and then Barnes & Noble has an electronic book as well. You can buy it. Please do. I want his message to get out there. But okay, so John Tiffany, and at the time I didn't know who John Tiffany was. I found out later, and I'll share that with y'all in a little while. Wrote the story. It's not a story. It's his article actually, and they included it in here. Now it says, I want you to hold on. Okay. Cultists believe the pseudo-NESARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, a misappropriation of the original acronym, is a miraculous secret law hundreds of years in the making. They believe it was blocked and covered up by George W. Bush, the George W. Bush administration. Some of the group believe the 9/11 attacks were Bush's first attempt to delay their NESARA's implementation, and that the Iraq War was his second. They believe their pseudo-NESARA will abolish the IRS, remove George Bush from office, expose him as a reptilian alien, distribute fortunes to the worthy few, install a saucer-flying Jesus Christ as America's new leader, and bring about a golden age with help from some friendly extraterrestrials. Believers say that their NESARA promises forgiveness of all debt, elimination of the IRS, world peace, the disbandment of current government and its replacement with deities, and unity with our space brethren. Okay. This chapter goes on to talk about a lot of the other things that Ms. Goodwin said. And this is when the tables turned for me. When I concluded reading this chapter, and I said, no, my father wrote this simply because he wanted to share the truth with people. He wanted people to know that there's a way out, and it's real, and it's not a fantasy. And none of those things are true. Not one. So it was interesting, and it changed my direction. I said, well, if for nothing else, I want to make sure that people know who he was and that his reputation is restored. I decided to go ahead and do the paperback and launched it, have the website, and then started a little Facebook page, and tried some other social media. I was quickly banned or just denied access altogether. And I think I'll explain that a little bit later as to why I think that happened. Excuse me. They, my Facebook page, I put it out there, and I thought, okay, this is great. I'll have the book, and that kind of stuff. Well, again, I was wrong. The amount of resistance that I was met with was staggering. The first, it was right, left, people just arguing politics. The beautiful part about this, now again, I want you to look at 2005, he released this. I know the name, we all know, we hear this, we've heard this since 2015, when President Trump came down the escalator, draining the swamp. This was here before then. Just want to keep that in mind. Anyway, I forgot where I was. He came down, he wrote it, and the con artist and grifters. Let's just shift to that page. You want to bring up the slide on the article that we just did, Greg? I don't know if he's still there.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah, of course I am.
Bring up the article there.
Yeah. Slide that
Yes,
we just
that's
did,
one.
this
Okay. So this will
Yeah.
answer the question of who is John Tiffany. And I wanted to make sure I got to this point before we go further along. John Tiffany was the editor of the American Free Press. Okay. That is a really well-known, reliable newspaper as far as at least it was in that day. Now this was in 2005. If you blew that up, you would see the date on this article was January 17th of 2005. I found that very interesting. But in here, he tells the whole story, and pretty much not quite as encompassing as what he put in Harvey's book, but pretty close. So I had stumbled across that in some of my memorabilia, and was like, oh my gosh, there it is. I have several newspaper articles of Harvey, but that one was just to find out that the editor of American Free Press thought enough of Harvey and his work to defend him publicly. And I actually called the American Free Press and I said, hi, this is me. I would like a copy of this article if you have it archived. And so they sent me another copy electronically. And I said, I would like to speak to John Tiffany. He said, oh, we all would. And I said, he's passed on. They said, yeah, he has. So I had wished I had, been able to interview him myself. get his impressions of what was happening at the time. Do you want to go on to the? Do you have any questions so far? I've just been rambling on. Okay, look, fire away.
Yeah, I did actually. Admittedly, I bought into the story that your father's work was tied into the Baskerville families who were losing their farms to the government. Please validate this as not being true.
It is not true. I think that was the Roy, was it a Swasinger case? That was all part of that. No, Harvey never knew them, never had anything to do with that. One did not have anything to do with the other. That was a separate case, and I don't know how they got intertwined. If that was something that Shanae did, let me look at my sheet here. We can, if she tied it in, and that was prior. That was 90 to 98, and yeah, I'm not really sure how that got mixed up, but no, it had nothing to do with Harvey. But it is a misconception, as with many. And if you want to bring up that let's see, Exhibit G, the PDF, we can talk about that. Excuse me, the timeline for the pseudo NESARA. What how this fish story got started.
The NESARA had secret.
I can't hear you.
Did your father ever claim that NESARA had secretly?
Greg, I can't hear you.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. All right, let me, I'm sorry, I had to close an app.
Okay. That happens.
Did your father ever claim that NESARA had secretly passed Congress?
Okay, I think what you're asking is, did Harvey ever claim that NESARA had been secretly passed by Congress? No. As a matter of fact, to the contrary. We actually have a letter in my archive stuff from Clinton's chief of staff at the time, saying that, thank you very much for your interest, but we can't help you. None of that ever happened. So let's start with Shanae Goodwin. Long about 2000, and see, this was 5 years before my father died, and wrote the book and passed away. On the scene, here comes Shanae Goodwin. Now, she had just been fresh off, what I understand from historical records, been fresh off of another scam, something called a mega trust or whatever. I don't know if she was a victim or if she was the perpetrator, what have you. But she suddenly has all of this backing and all of this information. And if you want to show the timeline that I have, remember I think I sent you this. It's on that exhibit. But she's the one that started the story. Let's make sure we get this correct. Okay, 2000, Dove of Oneness. She had a website, and 15 members of Congress forced to vote at gunpoint. Clinton signed the NESARA secretly, and gag orders were issued. So that's how it all started, right? But amazingly, like I said, she had all of this financial backing all of a sudden. And my father, who had been out there for, my gosh, since the early 90s, and it's now 2000, is barely scraping by, right? Um, her actual original NESARA wish list um, didn't look like quite like this. This is what I think floats around these days. Okay. Um, but it had some of this information on it. It wasn't because as time goes by, the fish story grows, Greg, and you'll see that. Um, so 2001, go back, let's see, go up to the top. There you
Oh God, no.
2001. Well,
I
anyway,
had
so
a
she
hard, yeah,
had a
I'm
hard
sorry.
time downloading. That's okay. I'll just tell them about it. 2001. Okay. She's still out there. She added to the story at that time that Alan Greenspan was set to announce NESARA, and that the Pentagon, I don't have my magnifying glass here, it's kind of small. The the Pentagon's and the White Knights, and what else did she add to the story? Um,
A lot of hot air and bullshit.
yeah, well, that too. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this over here so I can actually read it better, and I'm not squinting. Okay, I've got it on my other center. Okay. Yeah, so she had newsletters at this point. So this is 2001. She had newsletters and Yahoo groups. And it became one of the core enduring pseudo-NESARA lies that the Pentagon, the WTC and Pentagon hit to destroy NESARA computers and White Knights. Okay. 2002 to 2004. Ms. Goodwin is still at it. NESARA becomes tied, now she's tied it to UFOs and ascended masters. The key people in this time frame: Dove of Oneness, Matthew Ward, Channeler, Suzanne Ward. The myths that they added at this time was that it was part of the Galactic Federation involvement. NESARA must occur before ascension, and secret program funds for light workers. And the medium they used was starseed websites, channeling forums. Okay, so now we've gone from never heard of this woman, no reason for her to have this information, to all of a sudden she's spreading out. Con artists and grifters and con artists work that way. It's psychology. They're going to prey on you, huh?
At this point, did she already embellish everything that we hear today that all the grifters are parroting?
And yes, it keeps adding on and adding on. Yeah. It wasn't just her. Okay, so she had, she had brought it into the ascension realm. Okay, so now we're talking about the spiritual realm. Then enters her sidekick, Miss Nancy Detweller. Miss Detweller kind of picked up the reins in 2003, 2005, and she joined the party. She had a website. She publishes the history of NESARA. She added the Saint Germain Trust myth, the Ascension Master Oversight, NESARA as God's Plan, and Prosperity Programs. Her website was Pathway to Ascension, and her impact was that she provided spiritual framing that makes the myth appealing to millions. Okay, what you have to understand, as a con grows, it's like, how can I put you in this car today? Oh, you like pink fuzzy dice? Okay, we're gonna go, look, we're gonna get you all of this. You like, oh, you're a serious politician, you're into the military. Okay, well, guess what? Here, this is the story for you. And they, whatever it takes to fill that desire in you to get you to believe them, right?
That car analogy is exactly what I said in my video on when I called out Charlie Ward and the whole NESARA grifters, all of them. But what I specifically said, and I use Shani Candace Goodwin as the example when she's talking about whatever it was, the bullshit that she was pushing during a conference. You can find one of her videos still on YouTube right now.
You can find it.
Yes. And I downloaded it. And when she's talking like this. And this is exactly my background's in psychology. This is neuro-linguistic programming. She's nodding her head. Yes. getting the people to nod their head yes. No matter what I say, you're going to be nodding your head yes, because I'm nodding my head yes. It's psychological programming.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I studied a little bit of that as an administrator in behavioral health, but I worked with a lot of very good clinicians. And yes, you're right on target. That is part of it. It is the behavioral. Um, so yeah, they had some other people join the party too. In 2000 and no, let's see, Ms. Detwaller was with us until 2012. And then we had some other influences come in. Steve Becklow, 2009 to 2000, and looks like 17, 12 to 17. He added some things. NESARA's definitely coordinated ET disclosure is required before NESARA can be implemented. NESARA will eliminate work, money in the long run. Let's see, impact. And NESARA became linked to the 2012 Ascension hype. Now, I believe that there was some hype at that time about end of the world or whatever that was going on. And so he tapped into that. We start after that to move into the, let's see, the 2015 to 2017, 2018. This is when they took it on the road. In other words, they had the pseudo national plan, right? That they co-opt, and it has a couple, like two things from Harvey's bill. The rest of it is just a bunch of wishes, you know, nothing concrete, no bill, no instructions. But they took it and they added the G. Said, hey, let's take this circus on the road. Okay, so here we go. We're going global. And so that came about 2015 to 2017. Then you can come on the myths that were added at that time were BRICS nations adopting NESARA's principles, the global debt forgiveness, quantum financial systems. Now the platforms expanded to YouTube, Gaia TV, and New Age Telegram groups. 2018, here we come. Here comes the Q train. President Trump, which I'm just to state outright, not that I care as anybody, but I support President Trump, so I do like him. Don't agree with everything he does, but I would vote for him again. So just clear that out of the way. Trump cooperating. Okay, so Trump is cooperating with QFS and Global Currency Reset. The myth added was alliance versus cabal war, world leaders secretly implementing NESARA. And of course, the platforms were QAnon forums, 8chan, and Telegram Q channels. Of course, then comes COVID. So they expand, they use crises to, people are down or feeling vulnerable, and they're going to, try to, I guess, extend the grift. Nice way to put it. So they added another myth. Okay, now they're saying that in 2020 that Trump was going to implement NESARA and tied it to the World Bank secretly switching to gold, added things like XRP, XLM, Bitcoin tied to NESARA, and all the usual social media platforms. And you can bring it right on down. Let's see, 21 to 23. TikTok creator spread NESARA debt forgiveness claims. And this is when it hit tens of millions of people. And that was their first time seeing the pseudo NESARA. Of course, these tens of millions of people have no idea that there was ever a real NESARA, right? This is the only thing they've had. Okay. So you have to distinguish, and I think this is very, very important, Greg, and I want to make sure that people hear this. There is a huge distinction between people, the citizens who know that think the system has to change, that need the help, okay, that realize that this system, this monetary system is not sustainable, right? And the people who are taking advantage. Okay, there's a huge difference, and I want to make sure that that's known. I'm not out to get anyone. I'm just here to present the truth and the facts as I see them. People can make up their own mind. the new people today, like if you get on down to 23, 24, and 25, a lot of these new TikTokers and new podcasters are jumping into a pond here that's been around for over 25 years, and they don't even know that they're just extending this big fat fish story. You know, where they're getting their facts or who they're getting them from, they won't tell you. So, you know, to me, it's just, if you
Don't
can't
you
bring
think-
something solid to the table, don't come.
Don't you think most of them know, if they did just an ounce of research, that this is hot air and bullshit? That
I
they're
think
promoting
so.
it great, that they're just doing it for followers?
I think so. And I think that you are correct. Yeah. There certainly are some people that have been doing it for a while, and they know for sure. They know exactly what they're doing. Of course they do. There's no
Oh,
way
yeah.
not to. And I've been out, you know, in my story when I met this resistance, and you know, here I'm on Facebook, and I'm getting the right left march, and then I started getting all of this. You're a faker. This is the real NESARA. And I said, wait a minute, hold up, here we go. Okay, it took me a long time to try to reach people and make them understand, and even the computers. You know, AI works on information. It gathers information, and then it goes to, you know, boil it down, and it'll give out. So it took me a little while to make it understand who I was. And once we did the research together, and I gave the evidence that I had, it finally started to learn. But still, nobody's listening. They want that hopium. They're not interested until FCB. And I want to, you know, make sure that I give a huge shout out to him. He's an independent journalist from Australia. He has a marvelous show. It's FCB. You can find him on Rumble. Freedom Channel Broadcast is what FCB stands for. And he called me, and I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, I just want to give a shout out to FCB, because I have watched some of your videos out there, and FCB, if you're watching this, I hope you are. I would like to team up with you and take on every one of these grifters. If you're up for it, get in touch with me. Continue.
He's a fabulous person. His whole team is just wonderful. And he contacted me and said, "You're real." And I said, "Yeah, been here the whole time. Didn't know." You know. And so he invited me on his show, and he did a wonderful in-depth series. And what I've just shown you with this little timeline is just pales in comparison to the in-depth research that he did on all of these people, and really did a nice presentation. Well, I think it was episode 3. He brought me out, and I think the world took a collective gasp. That world did anyway. You see, I don't think they ever expected to hear from us. You know, we disappeared. My father died. We went on about our business. The end. And so they were allowed to flourish in a vacuum. And that vacuum helped two people, or two interested. It helped them, of course, make money. But think about it. And this is a theory, and I do not claim that it is anything but a theory. At the time, in 1996, when my father released his bill into the public domain, I'm losing my camera angle here. Okay, released it into the public domain. All right. The politicians already knew about it prior to then. He had handed them a copy, right? So that in 1996, when now the general public has it, that bell has been rung. You can't unring it. Coming after Harvey would have done them no good. So what is the first order in the playbook? You discredit. And so all of a sudden, here comes Shanae Goodwin, Johnny on the scene, all of this backing and support. You tie it up with something that is so outrageous and fringe that it never sees the light of day. So.
You said that the politicians knew about it. And this leads me to exactly why I think we're fighting this stupid war, and we're fighting Israel's war in Iran, is because most of Congress is bought off by dual citizens who live in the promised land, we'll say, so I don't shadow ban or whatever.
Right.
But you know what I'm talking about. Even back then, I bet you they were paid off and didn't want this to go through for that same exact reason, that the banksters ultimately control everything.
And yes, the banking industry is a huge part of this. Okay, and it needs to be understood. Harvey's not speaking out against the banking industry. Okay, it's these
I am.
people do a job. They do a job. They do a service. Hey, you know what? If I'm lending money, then I deserve to make something for my time, and I deserve, it's a job, but it should be treated that way, not as a public utility, not as, the rules and regulations for banking allow for money creation through debt. Okay. And I can explain all that to you. Maybe we do a little separate show and I'll do a little side explanation of how
But
that mechanics work.
the charter on the Federal Reserve ran out in what, 2013, and it was never renewed. So what gives them the right to do anything? It was never passed again. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Why are they still making
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm not a politician, and I'm not an economist, so I couldn't tell you. But you know what? And that's the difference between me and I will tell you. I don't know. Let's find out. Let's go look it up. Let's ask somebody. I'm all about that journey, that adventure. Let's go find out. But it makes sense. So they've discredited it. We go away. Nobody thinks about it again until it comes back. And again, this is not a new concept. Harvey didn't this is not something new. Compound interest, as we get into start talking about the bill, is what keeps people enslaved. Okay. The bill calls for, hang on, let's go ahead and do that. Why don't we just jump into it? If you're ready.
Yeah, whenever. What slide are we going on?
Okay, let's go.
G. No, H.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to I. Okay, we can start with this one. So this is just a little picture I did, and this just illustrates, how Harvey describes it in the book. I mean, he goes all the way back into the history of money, how the country was set up, different laws, different things, and how the people in power used serving the people to enrich themselves, okay, by creating a utopia. And it's really weird how did we go from a man with a plan just walking down the halls of Congress to where we are today, which is just complete. I don't think if he were alive today, he wouldn't believe that we've allowed it as citizens. We've allowed it to go this far. So Harvey took a look at how the swamp was created. Here, let me put this over here on the side so I'm not blind. Okay, so he saw this as not as a good cop, bad cop situation. Okay, this is a philosophical era, and the people that are in control have misguided policies. Okay, they wanted to create a utopian society for the people, and they did that through debt spending, and they did it through taxation, which ever expanded the dependence on government. And then it became a perpetual snowball that you can't undo, right? That's very oversimplified, but just to kind of give a direction. In the process of this, they overburdened the population with taxation and debt and built a system that is unsustainable. And that neither party can do anything about. There's a question a lot of people ask, and I've asked it myself. When people get elected, you've got a buddy down the road, and he's a good old guy. He's going to run for senator, representative, or whatever. And you know him, and he's a good, honest guy. And all of a sudden he gets elected, and when he takes a step across that line, it's like this wall goes up and everything changes. And you'll say, oh yeah, well, they bribe you or they catch you in something and all that kind of stuff. There's another thing to it. even
And
if
they
you
also
have,
become multimillionaires at that point.
yes,
When
well, they do. Well,
it's
what
that
I'm going to tell you,
training and all that.
because they find this out, Greg. When they get there, they find out that this system is so entrenched. I'm not talking about the corruption. I'm talking about the mechanics of the monetary system that you can't you can't fix it. They tinker at the margins. They'll fix this little problem, or they'll raise this interest rate, or they'll bail these people out, or they'll do this or do that.
Quantitative
But they're
bullshit.
not going to overhaul the whole system. And there's nothing that one person can do about it. So they give up very quickly. And they say, well, we'll just kick that can down the road and I'll just join the party. And then there's when the corruption starts, right? The solution. Okay, so Harvey's solution was this. Again, you cannot tinker at the margins. I can go back and show you examples and examples and examples of all of the financial crashes and everything that happened, and how just putting a Band-Aid on or a patch. I like to use a tire. You have a tire on a car and it's got holes in it, and you keep patching. Eventually, you have to change the tire, and that's what this bill does. Again, it is not difficult. It is detailed, but it's a very simple bill. And, it's chapter 5 in this book. I mean, anybody can read it and understand it very easily. So, that's where we are now. To get a little bit deeper into what Harvey, identified as the cause is legal plunder. Are you familiar with that term, legal plunder?
No.
There was an economist. He was French, Frederick Baptiste, something like that. I think he coined the phrase. Legal plunder is this. I'll give you an example. Okay. Let's say I go down to my neighbor's house and they have a cute little lawn art statue there, and I steal it. And I take it and I put it in my yard. Well, my neighbor is going to call the police, and I'm going to be arrested for theft, right? Okay. The government can come and take my neighbor's lawn art and sell it and give a bunch of people a little money, and that's perfectly fine. That's legal plunder, okay? That's what it is. And that is what our taxation system is built on, is legal plunder. And
that's robbing Peter to pay Paul, basically.
Exactly, okay? And they utilize that money to spread their idea of utopia. And now we're back to, how can I put you in this car today? You see, a congressman is not elected to think of the nation on a sovereign level. They are put into office to represent their district. Well, Bubba in my district needs a bridge. So guess what? That's what I'm focused on. And I'm not interested in any of this other stuff. You see what I'm saying? So they get the tax money. Oh, we don't have enough tax money? Well, then we'll just borrow some. We don't have it? Well, we'll print some. Or we'll do a loan, and that just makes an entry on somebody's books. And oh my God, money is created. Right? So this is how one of the problems, or one of the things that he identified, is how the system's broken. The taxation system that he proposes is fair, and we'll talk about that. I'll go through it, its principles. Of course, we just talked about debt financing. Now, also, there's another little side effect going on during this utopia creation, and the state actually providing so many things that the United States government was never really designed to provide, and that is it changes conduct. It changes people's ability to, or desire to be independent, to be self-reliant, and therefore actually mixes morality with the state more than they, they always like to say, no church and state. No, it's really interwoven. It really is. The state virtue signals, oh, we have to do this because it's the good thing to do. So, yeah. No. All right. Any questions so far?
I do, but I'm going to ask them at the end of the presentation.
Okay. Oh, you're going to wait till the end. Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, we talked about the some of the effects. One of the effects of this is the natural rights are blurred with civil rights. You were born with natural rights. Okay. You live, you breathe, you have a right to free exchange with people, right to say what you wish, these are natural rights. Civil rights are something that they grant you, or it's a civic idea or a civic thing. These have gotten completely intermixed. You have to have a license and a tag and a blah blah for everything that you do, right? Um, and it's a right. Medical insurance is a right. No, it's not. It's not a right.
This bullshit, basically, this is my interpretation of our freedom that we have. You can look at freedom as a man walking their dog. The man is the government, you're the dog, and the leash is the amount of freedom we have. And it keeps getting shorter and shorter
Mhm.
and shorter each year. I mean, look at free speech, for example. Right now, we're both shadow banned. Why? Because they won't allow our free speech, but they'll allow other people that are
Mhm.
pushing hot air and bullshit to
Right.
prosper. You kidding
Yes.
me?
Yeah. Well, the maypole dancers are not a threat. And it's not that we're
No,
a threat. It's that
no.
we want to empower people with education. And again, like I said, Harvey says it in one of the last chapters, and he talks about a monetary rights movement, and he talks about civil rights. He talks about Martin Luther King. And he said, if people understood, and it's so simple once you read this, how deeply economically they are enslaved, and that there is an organized, calm way out of it, there would be, this would be the only topic on the news. This would be the only subject across the country. We wouldn't be talking about bathrooms and whatever else we're talking about. It would be, this would be top of the list, and yeah, it would overhaul everything, and it would make it fairer. Um, so yeah, the civil rights, the politicians in banking, that gets really intricate, and so I'll talk on it a little bit when I go through the bill, but I want people to read that, because that is really changing the rules of banking about how much you can have on reserves, how debt is created. It is huge. I've done several little episodes on different financial problems we've had, and how you can see um, where they're going. A lot of people say that the system is going to crash. I believe that. I do. Um, and it's because of a lot of little things that are all converging.
Every
And
known
again,
every known form of currency has crashed. Every
yes,
single one.
yeah. So we're not going to be the exception.
Nope.
So we're not just like, oh, we're great. Um, So, yeah, the bottom line of this is that their philosophical era of trying to create a utopia for its citizens, which is a noble cause, they're doing so through means that were unsustainable: legal plunder, debt creation, centralized power has ruined the country's actually, if you want to get rid of their morality, you know, if you take it that far, people don't want to take responsibility. They don't think they have to take responsibility for themselves anymore. Everything should be handled by the government. I said it's the nanny state, you know, for what do they call it? Cradle to the grave, they should take care of everything. And that is not freedom, and it's not sovereignty. Let's see. Okay, so let's go to the next one, and we will talk about what NESARA does. How do we
Okay.
fix this? Okay. So Harvey came up with a bill that is really two major parts. One is monetary reform, and that's creating a stable, honest monetary system that works for the people. When we talked about that, backed on gold and silver, other stable, what they would consider. I hate to use the word stable coin, but I mean investments, commodities. That's what I'm looking for, commodities, and tax reform. Okay. So let's get into it. Here we go. Banking and treasury control. So in the first part of the bill here, you can go to the next slide if you got it.
Um,
It's N, I think.
I just had up to M.
You didn't have N?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Um,
Sorry.
Yeah, there was, well, it was attached on, oh, I bet you that's because it was on the drive. Yeah, it was on the drive. That's what it was. It's sitting as a drive link. Well, I can just tell you guys about it. So, um, and actually, what I'll do is I'll just move this right over here. Okay. So, the banking reform and treasury control, the Treasury would replace the Fed. Okay, so the Federal Reserve structure, you just move everything over to the Treasury, and they start paying the electric bill. That's really the only the only change there. The Treasury's job is to make sure that exchange rates stay stable. They are to monitor the gold and silver exchange rates and keep that stable. And all of that is outlined in here. I mean, there's nothing to chance. Everything has, a definition, it exactly when and where and how it is to be used. Compound interest, and here's where we get to the banking reform. Harvey's National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act calls for the elimination of compound interest on secured loans. Okay, this is any loan for something substantial, car, house, and the mortgage loan business is really where it has the most impact. This does not apply to student loans or credit cards or any kind of liability like that, only secured loans. Your debt-based currency is replaced. We just talked about that. And sound money options are restored. Now, we go to my next one here. Okay. When your money is backed by something substantial, it eliminates speculation and inflation simply because it has a set value. Okay. And it's going to fluctuate a little bit. And again, that's what the Treasury is there to make sure those exchange rates stay in line. But if your value of your money stays the same, then you're not going to have to worry about, oh, well, my dollar today is worth 25 cents and 10 years ago it was worth 75 cents. Okay, that doesn't happen. That's what inflation is. It's not that the prices of things go up, it's that your dollar buys less. And NESARA fixes that. The multiple forms of exchange, the way he has it set up is that you would have gold and silver, but you're not asking people to carry around gold and silver all the time. You still have bank accounts, you still have debit cards, you still have cash money, silver certificates or gold certificates, and they're printed based on what they're backed by, but they are backed by real, tangible assets. It's not like it is today, where if you go in, you exchange your money, they don't have that in the safe to back it up. So, but he, like I said, he has all that outlined. The taxation system, which is the second part of it, is really where things change, especially for everyday citizens, especially even more so for citizens who are on a fixed income, Social Security, or just anybody who's on a low income. What he proposes is a national sales tax. We eliminate the IRS, and the IRS office workers, all that kind of stuff, are not disbanded. They just changed their function. They became the collection agent for the national sales tax. Now, this is a federal tax. So what happens is that your payroll taxes, that federal tax, would go away, and that would be in your paycheck. And then you pay your tax when you go to the register. If I buy something, if I buy this pen, then I'm going to pay tax on the pen. That's it. Nobody has to know how much money I make. Nobody has to know that I went to Taco Bell or where what I'm doing. Okay, I pay my tax when I go to the register. Many things are not taxable, and here's where the benefit comes in for lower income people. Things like food, rent, certain medical procedures, certain medical accessories, medications themselves are not taxed. Again, there's also many retail or goods, manufacturing goods used to produce retail items that are not taxable. This whole system, the way he has it set up, makes actually manufacturing cheaper and allows them to make more money. There's no corporate tax, no capital gains tax. Of course, you can say right now, I know the president likes to say no tax on Social Security. It depends on what tax bracket you're in. So you always have to read the fine print. One of the nice things about the taxation system is the privacy. Okay. Again, the government knows too much about you already. And the IRS can and has been weaponized in the past. We know that can happen. So the fact that you don't have to worry about your income, and you get that privacy back. You don't have to report certain taxes. There he has it all lined out. Whereas if an item is sold 2 or 3 times, then it just becomes out of the realm of being taxed. What else? I'm trying to make sure I got all the little things on there. There's so many things that he has that really help the lower class people. I say not lower class, but lower income people. But the attraction for companies to stay here and do business, as the political pendulum swings back and forth, we have sometimes the corporations want to be here depending on who's in office, and sometimes they don't. Okay. But this levels the playing field because it's advantageous for them to do business here all the time, simply because we have low taxes and low manufacturing cost. Again, back to the raw materials. So there's a lot of good things in the tax bill. And like I said, read it in the book. So there you are. When you're not there, I was like, I'm talking to anybody.
I've been reading the comments posted.
Oh, okay.
While you were talking, and it's really fascinating because what we're talking about, well, at least that is one of the truths of the pseudo NESARA is, well, it's a pseudo truth, I guess, but not getting rid of the IRS, but not the way that they believe in the pseudo NESARA. It's transforming it into something that's actually beneficial at this point.
Right.
And right.
Exactly. Look, I understand, everybody wants, all of this debt jubilee and everything's free, that is not reality. Okay. You're running a business here. This country is a business. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's the way it is. And you're going to have some money. If you want to help people, if you want to help disabled people, if you want to help feed kids in schools, you're going to have some money. Okay. If you want the military, whatever we decide to spend our money on. Now, President Trump has floated the idea, and I don't know how far along he's gotten it with, about the External Revenue Service, which is fabulous. It's a great idea, and it runs on the tariffs. That's wonderful. It's not steady or stable enough in my mind to keep it. I don't know the numbers, so I'm just stabbing in the dark. But to me, it seems like it might, could come and go. But it's good. But it cannot fit the whole bill. 2 things have to happen. You have to raise some money, and you have to cut your spending. You have to decide as a society, what is government really responsible for and what it's not? What is it not? So you go back to the Constitution and you start there. And then, you look at it and say yes or no. Because many times they raise our taxes or they convince us, oh, this is for your good. You'll be safe. This is more convenient. This is more comfortable. And we give them this money out of our tax coffers, and that never ends up being the case. We just get more and more restricted.
So taxes transfer wealth from the private sector to the government to pay for public infrastructure, defense, social programs, while pulling money out of circulation to control inflation or fund public goods, while fractional reserve interest expands the money supply. And it just works totally against us. How does your father come up with a specific tax rate that would cover everything that needs to be covered?
He has his equation.
Would that
That,
have
that's
changed?
That's a good question. It's a good question. He has formulas in the bill and throughout the book where his actual formulas where he calculated things. I'm not an economist or a great mathematician, but I can tell you it's in here. He came up with that rate because I'm sure at the time he looked at what we were spending and what we were taking in and figured this would be an adequate rate. Now, is that rate still adequate now? I don't know. Somebody would have to crunch the numbers to see. And again, we're giving away a whole lot more stuff now than we were back in the early 1990s. That bill has gone up,
You know, the United States is the only country on the planet that has been at war every year since 1830. So
Mhm.
how would the military industrial complex is going to say, what's our cut in this flat rate?
Oh
So
yeah, and that's well, with that cut, that all comes down into the budget. When Congress does the budget and they say, hey, which department gets, this, that, and how much, and all of those things have to be decided, and it's up to the people to say, yes, that we want to spend this much on this, that, or the other. A lot of the problems we have today, and you alluded to, of the conflicts overseas, the influence of foreign governments in our in our country, in our politics. You also, we talk about lobbyists, big industries like pharma or ag or whatever it may be, influencing our government. That is not their fault. That's our fault. Okay? That is our fault. That is, American citizens have gotten just laissez-faire attitude, and I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do it. Oh, they're going to take care of that. That's fine. That's great. Ease and comfort. This ease and comfort box. Okay? We have allowed that to happen. This is our government. You look at some of the other countries; they don't have this problem because they don't allow it. Right? They don't allow it. Um, and again, so that's our shadow that we need to deal with. And the American people have to say, okay, I care enough about my economic existence and that of my children and grandchildren that I'm going to get involved. And we haven't put the website up here, but I want people to know it's NESARAinstitute.com. And I'm sure it'll be in the link down here. NESARAinstitute.com. You can find me there on my website, and that is where you can get the book. You can also find out all kinds of great information about Harvey. In fact, I tell you what, Greg, let me do this real quick. Okay, let me come down here. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. And show these folks real quick. Okay, I don't know. Can y'all see that? Can you see that, Greg?
Oh, hang on. I'm just copying the link right now.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to show them the website.
Yeah, I just posted it in the chat.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that's where you can get all the information. But where did we leave off? I'm sorry. We were talking about we were talking about our shadow. That the American people need to say, yeah, I care enough to get involved and learn the truth. And learn that it's fixable. It really is, and it can be done in a calm manner as long as we get involved and we let our representatives know what is important to us. Back to the crazy issues that we talk about, the news cycles and bathrooms or whatever else is going on that just doesn't seem like it should be an issue. How do those things get to be issues? Well, because people make them an issue. Okay. Daddy always said, you knock on the door long enough, somebody will finally answer. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, all of that kind of stuff. If you go on my Facebook page, which you can find the link on my website, and you scroll down a little bit, I have 3 or 4 posts depending on the region. And there are links there within those posts that you can get to your representative. Okay. You start emailing them. And that's how things get done. You email them, you call them, you send them a letter, all that kind of stuff, and you keep it up. Like my email is set, I think it's every 10 days or so, it shoots out emails on this subject to my representatives. I can guarantee you they know who I am. But if enough people do that in mass, okay, and all of these senators or congressmen, representatives, whoever, are getting questions about this, then they're eventually going to ask each other, hey, are you getting these emails? Yeah, are you getting these emails? Well, I don't know. We got to do something about it. You see, it's the people that make the issues, not the other way around. We got to let the stop letting the legacy media and the politicians drive the narrative. We should be driving the narrative. Oh, there you're copying it right off the website. Yeah, that's our website right there. And go right there to it. And there's that recording from Harvey is on there. The one, yeah, that we found that was in the trunk. That was one of the things that we found in the
I
trunk.
tried to find something of him on the internet, and I scoured everywhere, and I couldn't find anything. And that was the first time when I visited your site that I actually ever heard him say anything. And you
Yeah.
said that that was the only known copy of him speaking anywhere right now
That's the only one
on
that
public.
I know of, unless a radio has an archive somewhere, because he did several radio shows. And why this? I mean, I'm just blessed beyond belief that we have that. I have several newspaper articles that I have that I posted on my Facebook page that were just in our collection of things that interviews he had done. And like I said, I remember setting up for him when he would do lectures and stuff with the PA system and that kind of thing. So,
Well, this sounds like an amazing thing that could be implemented, and
you can.
honestly, in my opinion, NESARA has gotten such a tarnished name with all the pseudo NESARA, GISARA pushers out there and parrots and echo chambers. But the real NESARA actually has substance to it, and it's something that could feasibly be implemented and do some of these things that would be beneficial for humanity.
It is. It can. And that's what I'm saying, because he was a systems troubleshooter, it is a closed-in system. So that's why I encourage people, reading the book and then understanding the bill it's not difficult, and you'll see, wow, yeah, this makes sense. If it actually worked this way, it would eliminate so many of our problems. You wouldn't have things like savings and loans going broke. You would not have a commercial real estate loan crisis, which we're in right now. You would not have these commodity prices out of whack. You would not have, and I did a show, oh God, I think it was one of the last ones I did with FC, about, in fact, I did a video on economic whiplash. I don't know if you've played that yet, but our leaders walk out and make a statement, and the stock market goes on a roller coaster ride, and the American people are taken for the trip. Okay, a trip we didn't sign up for, especially if you're retired. This is just incredibly stressful, and it doesn't have to be that way. A lot of people listen. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a supporter of President Trump. I love some of the things that he's doing. Do I agree with everything he does? No, but I don't think that that's necessary. Do I believe I'm better off than I would be were we in the other camp? Yes, I do. So that being said, I still think that a lot of people will just jump on the Q thing, and people ask questions about it all the time. Oh, there's going to be this great reset. It's just going to stop. Everything's going to stop, and it's going to be a few days, and then it'll crank back up. I said, have you played that tape out in your head, really? Have you? Do you know? Do you understand what you're asking here? It's not fun. I'll give you an example. I live in South Louisiana. I've been through many hurricanes, Greg, many. I've done the prepper pioneer thing, okay, for weeks on end. It stopped being fun after day 4, okay? So if you think that just bringing this whole system down, shutting it down to a screeching halt, and they say, well, the military will be there. Again, we have the finest military in the world, best boys and girls ever. They cannot be everywhere. And unfortunately, as you and I both know, in today's world, people will steal and hurt because they can, not because they need. So you shut everything down. You have all of this fear and all of this chaos, trying to be controlled in certain sectors, but not everywhere. And then a few days later, whoop, you're going to bring the machine back up. And then what? What are the people going to do? Where are they going to go? How, do you see what I'm saying? There's no plan. When you could do it calmly, rationally, with everybody on board, with everyone understanding exactly what is expected and what is going to happen. But the people themselves have to ask for that, Greg. They have to know about it. So that's why I'm here.
Well,
to let them know there's a choice.
That's where it all starts. It's with the education, which you're clearly providing.
Yeah.
Now, I have a bunch of questions I just want to rattle off, and we'll just
okay. Let's see if I can answer them. Ooh, I feel like I'm going to quiz here. Okay, here we go.
So, and I'm sure you can handle every one of these.
I will try. Okay.
Okay. Did your father approve of what Shaney Goodwin was teaching? Any of it?
No. I know that for a fact. I heard he and my mother discuss it. It was very upsetting to him. He could not understand how something that was good and logical and made sense could be so discarded, and something that did not even have any structure or any basis in reality could be given a free rein. That things like that just didn't compute, with his thinking.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe Shaney Goodwin intentionally altered NESARA for financial or ideological purposes?
I can't testify one way or to the other what Shaney Goodwin felt or thought at the time. I can only surmise that she had to know it would be profitable. I don't know her motivations, or was she alone? So yeah, I can't testify as to what someone thought or felt at the time. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. Why do you think so many people still believe these claims despite decades of failed predictions?
Well, that's that one's not so hard. It is the the psychology of hope, okay, and cognitive what is it? Cognitive
Dissonance.
Yes, dissonance. So we talked about that. So there's a lot of that plays into it, and they want to believe there was a vacuum left. Okay, we stepped back and after Harvey's death, and they had nothing else out there. Okay, and these people are feeding them all of this stuff, and they want to believe. They're now being molded by a society, as Harvey pointed out, and I just pointed out, that wants to take care of them, and they don't have to do anything, and they don't have to think. So they want that path of least resistance, and they life is stressful enough, so they want someone to hold their hand and say, "It's going to be okay. I got you." Oh, and by the way, that'll be $25.95 for
right.
And they're happy to pay. They're happy to pay because they think they're getting that peace of mind, and they feel included. I've got the shirt, I've got the hat, I'm saved. Okay.
Well, that boils down to groupthink too, and that's similar to the whole QAnon and trust the plan. If you go along with this with A, then surely you're going to go along with B, C, and D, where they don't ask you to question anything within their own group, just everything outside of it.
Outside yes.
Cognitive dissonance, kind of fight with each other.
Yeah.
One of the NESARA pushers, Santa Surfing, is selling Trump Sara hats for almost $40 a hat. Do you see parallels between Goodwin's tactics and modern online grifters and influencers promoting NESARA today?
Do I see, what was it, parallels? It depends on what Goodwin's goals were. Was she in it to make money for herself, or was she in it to discredit the actual bill? Certainly there's a similarity. Grift is grift, okay? And I'd ask people to say this, look, it is people can sell whatever they want. they have the right to do that. If I manufacture it, I can sell it all, and people can buy whatever they want. It is it's still a semi-free world, and it's a buyer beware world. So I ask you to think. Use a little logic. Is buying a Trump Sarah hat going to make your life better and actually change the economy? Whose economy is that going to change?
Santa Serpings.
Okay, you answered your own question.
Do you think false hope can become psychologically addictive for people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The little experience I had in clinical health, behavioral health, showed me that clearly. And yeah, people want that hope.
And exactly. And so at what point does hope become escapism?
I don't know at what point. I think that's an individual would have to make, every person makes that decision on their own, but it certainly is a path to that. You get that deep into it, and now you don't want to get out, that it's safe there, and you've escaped to that place, and you don't have to face the outside world.
I know you mentioned that you and FCB were talking about possibly confronting some of these grifters, but chances are most of them won't confront you. Do you think some people are afraid to question these people, the grifters? Do you think they're afraid to question NESARA because they're emotionally invested into it for years?
They're emotionally invested and they're financially invested. Okay. So these grifters not only get their confidence and get them believing, but they have asked them to invest money in whatever it may be. I think there's something like RV or QFS accounts or different things that they sell, subscriptions, memberships. They're gonna sell you a subscription so you can keep up with the next secret. And so, there's the shame that people feel when they think that, oh, well, I've been duped. I can't, I look like a fool. And we've had people who were followers who've now come, I don't say come to our camp. I don't want to, make it like that, but who had courage. And I've told them, they said, oh my gosh, I was wrong. And I gave them a lot of money and I'll never get it back, but at least now I know, and I learned the truth. And I praise these people because they're so courageous. It does. It takes a lot to do that. It really does.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone who has spent 20 years, or according to Charlie Ward, over 70 years, waiting for NESARA to happen?
That's a good one. Okay, here's the thing. We're talking, I think we talked about this earlier. We're talking about Washington, D.C. here. Okay. We're talking about politicians' aides, their staff, their spouses, their concubines, the press, lobbyists, military people. And over all of this time period, these people are coming and going in and out. This den of vipers, I'm going to tell you right now, if it so suited their purposes, even for one news cycle, to let something like that fly, they would do it. Okay? There is no way that they could have kept this a secret all this time. There simply is not. And, don't you, like I said, don't you smell a rat? I do,
but I also think that the whole playing the devil's advocate here, I think the whole 9/11 thing has been a huge cover up for this long.
And that's a possibility, and we now have evidence to support that. But why haven't they, if all of that was true, let's play devil's advocate for a minute, Greg.
Okay.
And all of that's true. And they've been holding it secretly, and they're waiting for what? What are they waiting for? Exactly. What would be the perfect time to let it fly?
It's not that they're waiting, but I believe that the bank the central banks, the Federal Reserve, the international banking, whatever the hell that thing's called. I think they're all controlling all major leaders. I think, like here in the United States, whoever's in charge gets shown the Zapruder tape and said by the Federal Reserve and says, if you don't agree with us, you're done, or this is your demise.
Okay.
So I think that the Federal Reserve pulls all the strings.
So the banking and the Federal Reserve and all of that is who's in control. I'll go with you on that. They have the power. But there's never a time, ever going to be a time when what is in this bill is beneficial to them.
Exactly. And that's why.
So that's never going to happen. Okay.
Because that gives power to the people.
Yeah, but they allow the grifters to go on. Because they make money, they make monetization for the social media platforms. There's a lot of industry there, and so people keep hanging on instead of educating themselves and saying, hey, no, that's not what this was a real bill, and it is a possibility. And even look, Harvey always said it, hey, you know what, if I'm wrong, I'll sit down. It said, but at least bring it out into the mainstream. At least let's have a discussion about it. Okay, that's the point. Other bills get discussed. Nobody will touch this. Believe me, I sent it to a lot of congressmen. Crickets, I sent 2 copies to President Trump, and I got thank you notes for both of them, and they were very, very nice. So, and you have to think that, did he read this prior to deciding to run? I mean, come on, look at the title here, that's his line. And I did do an apples for apples thing on the Real NESARA show, comparing President Trump's administration's policies against the bill. And what I did discover was there are not mechanical alignments, but there are philosophical alignments. Okay. So, that it will say a lot right there. I think it does. So I'll have to give you the link for that and let you share it.
I've got 2 questions, actually just one, and a final, just kind of I'm going to give you a softball on the final lesson.
Okay.
Because people need to hear these questions that I've been asking, coming from Harvey Barnard's daughter. And I'm really digging this whole interview. I'm finally calm enough where I can actually speak without...
Breathe, Greg. It's okay. You're fine.
Okay. So do you think people deserve honesty even if the truth is uncomfortable?
Yes. Yes, I do.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
So here's my softball. What message would you leave people who feel disillusioned after years of waiting for promises that never materialize? What would you tell them?
Wow, that's a really softball. They need to know the truth. They do. And I would say to them, do not punish yourself.
Good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a huge part. We don't heal without forgiveness of each other and forgiveness of ourselves. Okay. And that would be it. Just don't beat yourself up about it. But you make your own decisions. Read it, get it, read it, and then decide for yourself. Hey, maybe this is no. I don't subscribe to this, and I want to continue to believe in what these other people are telling me. That's fine. That's your choice. That's your choice.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't like to see people be hard on themselves. That's just unnecessary. We can move on. We can move on from that.
Dee, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on. Is there anything you'd like to leave off with, and give your links out as well?
Okay, I will. No, I just want to thank you for having me. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it, and you have given me plenty of opportunity to hope we've covered everything. I hate it when I finish an interview and I think, oh darn, I forgot to tell them this. But I've enjoyed the time, and it's been very relaxing. You are a great host. Um,
Uh,
yeah, again, I'm Dionese Barnard Gerbrecht, and I have the NESARA Institute. You can find us at nesarainstitute.com. Greg's going to put it in the link. Please go onto the website, browse around. There's some articles there, and a lot of good information about Harvey. Also, follow the link to our Facebook page, and you'll find all kinds of little videos that I've done about different situations and topical issues.
yeah,
And
the
that's
link
it.
is right below in the more info section. I just put it in the chat again. Dee, it's been an
Thank you.
honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for being
Well, thank
our
you
guest.
so much, Greg, for having me, and I hope we do this again sometime real soon.
That would be fun. I would love it. And pass on that message to FCB.
I will.
Please.
I will tell FC directly.
All right.
All right.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you so much. All right.
Care.
Bye.
Sending infinite love and light from my heart to yours. Take care now. Bye, everyone.